Welcome to Mom Boss Central. I'm your host, Alexia Hoffman. This podcast is where entrepreneurial moms like you and me come together for real and raw conversations filled with practical tips, genuine stories, and a whole lot of girl power. But it's not just about listening, it's about building a community. If you haven't already, make sure to join at mombosscentral.com. So whether you're sipping on a cup of coffee, pouring yourself a glass of wine, or tuning in on the go, get ready to join the conversation and become part of our supportive Mom Boss Central community. I'm here with Dr. Karen Molano. We're so happy to have you on Mom Boss Central. Welcome. Can you introduce yourself to our audience for those who maybe aren't familiar with you?
Yes. First of all, thank you for having me on your show. This is really fun and exciting. I am Dr. Karen Molano. I'm a multidimensional psychologist, and I help parents make parenting easy from pregnancy through the first 5 years. And I help them learn how to tap into their unlimited potential and instill that in their children as well, so that they can have that growing up and hopefully make life just a lot easier than what we've experienced it as adults.
Yes. Oh my gosh. I love that. I am so excited for our conversation today. So tell us a little bit how you got into all of it, how you got into your specific focus, and how that was impacted when you became a mother.
Yes. So I actually can literally date back to being about 5 years old, where I wanted two things really bad. I wanted to be a doctor of some sort. I didn't know what kind. And I wanted to be a mom. And those were my two wants in life. I was born in Colombia and I moved to the US when I was 7. So it was a rude awakening when you don't speak the language or anything like
Mhm.
that. And
Yeah.
in all those trials and tribulations, I did, when I started college, I didn't know what I wanted to do. I took a class in psychology, fell in love. Have always been in love with children, and so I started my career path in psychology. So that's what got me into psychology, and then I've always loved working with kids. So I've been working with kids since I was in college. Every job I took, everything had to do with kids. And so I specialized in children, working from 0 all the way to young adults. But most recently, I really shifted to pregnancy in the first 5 years. So
Got
when
it.
it was time for me to become a mom, I struggled with getting pregnant. So I went through all sorts of infertility issues, and it was like
Mm.
my life fell apart.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah, it was really hard. And I was doing all of the Western medicine things and
Mm-hmm.
nothing was working. And so
Mm-hmm.
I shifted to Eastern medicine. I'm like, there's gotta be something. I'm not gonna give up. The doctors were telling me,
Mm-hmm.
you gotta let it go. You can't be a mom. I'm like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
want to be a mom. I don't care what you say. And
Yeah.
so I started looking into Eastern medicine, and I went to acupuncturist. He completely shifted the way I was eating. And not only did I start to have results with the whole point, which was the getting pregnant piece and maintaining that pregnancy because I had miscarriages,
Mm.
but all these other ailments I had just started to go away. It literally felt like magic or something. I'm like, this is some sort of sorcery. And my mood was better. Everything was so much better. And so I started to wonder, like, why didn't I learn this in school? Because imagine the impact on
Yeah.
my clients and my families if we started to incorporate this.
Yeah.
So
Wow.
that's where it all started, back
Yeah.
when the infertility actually led to this.
Wow.
I
That's amazing.
otherwise. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. So what were you doing prior to the infertility? What were you kind of focused on, and what is your actual focus now?
Yes. So prior to the infertility and up till fairly recently, I worked for the government as a supervising psychologist, and we worked for all the children that went through Child Protective Services would come to
Mm.
us for assessment and
Oh my
linkage. So
gosh.
it was all levels of abuse, some that I could never even imagine were possible. So I did that for a very long time. And what
Wow.
I noticed too in that line of work is that the kids kept getting younger and younger and younger,
Mm.
and they kept getting more and more sick. So you literally could come in like a baby 3 days old. And a lot of people don't realize this, but a 3-day-old can be diagnosed with PTSD or
Oh my
depression or
gosh.
anxiety. And we would get these babies in these states, and it was so incredibly heartbreaking to see it.
Yeah.
Which is the other factor that I don't want to see kids suffer or grow up
Yeah.
suffering. And we grow up and we're constantly trying to change something about ourselves, reverse,
Yeah.
rewire, reprogram. It's constant. And
Yeah.
so in those two journeys, I thought, what if we started from the root, from right from the beginning? What if we intentionally wired the brain? What if we intentionally built the architecture of the brain in a way that really set up that foundation in those first 5 years? Because those first 5 years are what determines the way we view the world, how we interact with the world, how we interact with others. All of that happens in those first 5 years. So they're incredibly critical. And
Yeah.
we just didn't know. We didn't know any better. The research wasn't quite there.
Yeah.
Um, so I started to shift, like, okay, I really want to start going younger and younger and focusing more on allowing for people to have this information right off the bat, as opposed to waiting until they're in a state of distress, literally on the floor eating ice
Mm.
cream, going, help me.
Yeah.
Why are we
Definitely.
waiting until we're in that state of distress when we could get this out? I mean, I know you know how you bring a little one home and it's a shock to the system. You're like, what? Right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you just know what to do.
Yeah, I remember with my twins, I begged the hospital. I said, "Can I please stay a couple more days?" They said, "No, sorry, you've hit your
No,
max." I'm like, "What do I
exactly.
do with them now?"
And I remember bringing home my little one, and especially those first few weeks are, whew,
Yeah.
they're definitely a shock to the
Yeah.
system. And I always think about how we train for everything. We train
Yeah.
for presentations, we prepare for this and that in marathons. But when it comes to having kids, it's more like you take a couple classes, you read a couple books, here you go.
Yeah.
And
And
then go ahead.
yeah, on that same thing, I read as many books as I could, but I felt like I couldn't find many resources for that newborn. Like I read Happiest Baby on the Block. I read, Baby Wise, which are talking about scheduling and like tricks for soothing. But when I was like looking for how to quote unquote parent my like young babies, there is a huge gap I have found in what resources are available as a mom. Like, okay, I have my babies, like my twins now, they're 16 months. They're not quite toddlers, but
Yes.
they're not babies. And I'm like, okay, what should I be doing? I know this is impacting them, but the resources that I'm finding are either this is for a newborn baby to get them to stop crying, or this is for a toddler who can communicate to some degree and understand. But I felt like, what now?
And then you have all this contradicting advice.
Yes. Oh my
Do this,
gosh.
don't do this, and don't do this. And then
Yes.
us as parents, we go right into this mom guilt,
Mm-hmm.
comparisons. Am I
Oh
doing
yeah.
good enough? And so there are so many layers and so many components that they're not really looked at. And
Yeah.
so I wanted to take all of that and put it together in a way that a parent feels supported and understood and heard, and that they can instill a lifestyle that makes sense for them. Because I see
Yeah.
often, like, I can give you all the techniques or tips in the world, but often they don't work. And there's always a reason behind the why they don't. And a lot of it has to do even with the parent and their alignment to themselves and where they're at, how they were raised, what belief
Yeah.
systems they have going on. And
Yeah.
so when you take it all together, it's about really a lifestyle, something that makes sense, that's right where you're at your pace,
Yeah.
that allows for transformation and change to happen, not just for your little one, but for the family as a whole. And that's my dream and vision, is to see parents feeling more supported, and changing the story from parenting is so darn hard to it can be so much easier when we have that roadmap and we have a better, more clarity as to how to make choices in a way that makes sense for us, because there
Yeah.
is no one size fits all for anybody.
Yeah,
So yeah.
definitely. That's amazing. So, talk about your transition from working for the government and kind of being in that really hard environment so often to now running your own business while also parenting a little one. What was that transition like for you?
Oh my goodness. It still feels so recent to me because I was definitely doing both for a long time.
Mm,
And also seeing clients' private practice, being a mom, and then you're
yeah.
doing the juggling act,
Oh,
which
yeah.
who doesn't, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
what I realized too is that when I was working for the county, because I was at the county for 15 years, it was no longer in alignment with my drive, my passion, my
Mm,
desires. And when you're doing something that's not in alignment, you feel it. It feels heavy.
yes.
It
Oh my
feels so
gosh.
burdensome.
That
And
is
not that,
huge.
right? Not that it was a bad place to be. It just no longer fit me and no longer fit my values, especially when there was so much I wanted to do. And because
Yeah.
there's so many systemic things that don't allow you, oh no, you can't try that. You can't implement that. And I'm like, oh my
Mm-hmm.
gosh, we could really be making a difference, but we're
Yeah.
not implementing these things or doing things different.
Yeah.
And so I felt like my soul was dying.
Oh
And
my gosh.
I
Yeah.
literally just took a leap because what I noticed is by the end of the day, when it was time to work on my stuff and, my dreams, I was drained. I had no life force in me. And
Yeah.
so I decided to take a leap and believe in myself a little bit more than I did before. Like, I believe in what I have.
Yeah.
And me staying at, oh, yeah, it's a stable job and I get that monthly income and everything. But then is that saying that I don't believe in myself if I don't give myself the opportunity to try? So
That's
I
so good.
totally launched into the entrepreneurship story. And that's what I've been doing full time, not for very long, actually, but
Yeah.
it's amazing how much traction I've made in such a short amount of time
Yeah.
when you let go of what no longer serves you. It
Yeah.
literally just boom, and you get ideas and downloads and
Mm-hmm.
inspiration,
Yeah.
and things just flow. So
Yeah, I love that. I feel like that is so important for our mom boss central community to hear because that I think we get caught up, at least I can relate to that too, with when you're not in alignment, when what you're doing isn't giving you energy, it's taking your energy, right? So for you, I'm sure when you left that and you had the space of, okay, I'm not giving my energy to something that's misaligned, it's like a whole new person comes out and you have more creativity, you have more time, you have more enjoyment with what you're doing. And I just relate to that so much from in my real estate world, which is obviously so different, but where my real estate business started, where I focused my energy. And then as it shifted and it grew to, okay, I want to mentor. So I focused on building my team and my office. And then I realized like something still isn't right. Like the alignment wasn't there. I was like, I know I feel closer to my passions, right? Like everything I'm doing is getting me closer. I'm getting closer to that why. I'm understanding what works and what doesn't, but it's still not, I could tell it's still not right because I wasn't having that alignment, that fulfillment. And it was, I'd reach a high and then I'd feel my energy draining. And it's like, okay, something's off. And then to create this Mom Boss Central community, I was like, this is it. Like once I started working on this, I all of a sudden have so much more time. I have so much more energy and just so much joy in doing all of it. Like I want to spend more time doing it because it's aligned, right? Like this is what I've been looking for. When I was, trying to do the mentorship with real estate, it was close because I was mentoring people, but it wasn't quite my ideal avatar, right? Because I'm like, okay, who do I want? Who do I relate to? Who do I want to be speaking to? And once I realized like entrepreneurial moms are my people, it's
mm,
like, wow, like that was it. That's where it took me kind of going through and like as entrepreneurs, we know it's not always like point A to point B. Sometimes we
no,
have to go off the road a few times and wander back, but yeah, I just think that's so relatable for anyone in any business to hear that. So I'm so glad that you brought up that alignment and taking the leap because it can feel scary when you are used to something for so long. So for
thank
somebody who is like in your where you were, have a long-term career that feels comfortable but feeling a pull to take that leap, what advice do you have?
oh my goodness, so much. And I think it really parallels with parenting.
Mm.
And being a parent is that, it's about following your intuition and your passion. There's often a message. There's often a little gut feeling, and you're like, "Ooh, that feels really good." And we
Yeah.
often doubt it. We doubt it so many times. And I know
Yeah.
where I'm like, no, maybe I'll do it later, or
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't really know if I could pull that off. Whatever it
Yeah.
is. And sometimes it's a very, very simple nudge.
Mhm.
When you follow it without judging it, without thinking of the outcome, just literally just follow it and just see where it leads you. It could be literally, I really feel like I want to go to the coffee shop and grab a coffee, but I
Mhm.
can't right now because I'm busy. But sometimes when you go and you go grab that coffee, that could be the place when you're following that intuition and that passion, that desire that leads you to the person that's going to get you to the next step, or whatever that is.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so I've really started to learn to trust that intuition and follow that passion, even when it doesn't make sense.
Mm.
It the same goes with parenting. When I always tell my parents, if something really doesn't feel good, listen to that. There's a message, because parenting is supposed to feel good, even when we're embracing emotions that are undesirable and not helpful. There's
Mhm.
always a message behind them. And so to be able to sit with that and really listen can
Yeah.
be so helpful to having an easier parenting journey. So for me, if I really don't feel something, or somebody says, do this thing as a parent, and I just don't feel good doing it, I just don't do it, because it's
Yeah.
not in alignment with me. And that's where I don't
Yeah.
think anything is a is a one size fits all in parenting, or in business. And
Yeah.
then the other piece that I really want to strive for, both, as a mom and an entrepreneur, is really surrounding yourself with like-minded people that
Yeah.
share your goals, that share your drives and your passions, and that want to uplift you. Because being an entrepreneur, as I'm sure many of you relate to, can feel incredibly lonely. It can
Yeah.
feel like such a lonely journey. And so can parenting. When
Mhm.
you're, especially when you're comparing yourself to everybody out there, especially social media, like, well, they look like they have a perfect life. Does
Yeah.
anybody? Probably not.
Yeah.
But when you are surrounded with people that will raise you up, and those two integrate, I think it's about
Mhm.
integration versus one or the other, or balance. It's like, how can we integrate these two together? And I love the fact that you incorporate your kids into your work, because that is a
Yeah.
way to find alignment and
Yeah.
really be authentic to who you are. So those two pieces stand out for me, and I love that you've created this community, because I think it's so necessary to
Yeah.
be able to move forward and have all the things we want, and feel that joy, is to be a part of a community that really cares, is huge.
Mhm.
So I'm so grateful that you
Well,
were
thank
inspired
you.
and followed your passion to put this together, because it's
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, I think I'm just blown away, True, by the amount of like interest, and even the moms that have reached out about being on the show. Like, I didn't know what to expect, and I didn't know the need, because I do feel like I know there's business groups, I know there's mom groups, I'm in them, right? I was craving that community. I was joining women in business and different moms groups, but I did feel like being an entrepreneur and a mom at the same time, especially with young kids,
Mhm.
is just such a unique situation, and it is so isolating, and it can feel so lonely, because I felt like I was met with shame and guilt around not doing enough for my kids, not doing enough for my business, right? People looking from the outside in saying, oh, you can't possibly have enough time to dedicate to both your business and your kids and to do a good job. And a lot of that could have been, my own voice in the back of my head, but it comes from things that you hear and see people saying, right? So I think that I was just so grateful that the need was there, and to connect with so many like minded women that that support the fact that we can do both. We can do business and raise babies and do them both well. And it's not necessarily about doing it all, but finding what we're passionate about and not having to sacrifice that because someone else says we're doing too much. So I'm so grateful, just the people, like you said, having that community is so important, to not feel isolated and to not feel that shame and guilt, because I think it's easier to see someone else doing it well and say, okay, they can do it well, I'm okay, where we're more critical towards ourselves than we would be someone else, right?
Oh, always.
So for somebody who is juggling, trying to juggle starting a business or being in business and having young kids, let's say specifically ages 0 through 5, what advice do you have for them on connecting with their kids in a meaningful way so that it is impactful and supportive to what the kids' needs are at that young age?
Yes. One thing that I really, really love, which is a skill that's easy to learn and that can really make a very long lasting impact both for the child and the parent, is infant massage. So when you
Okay.
actually learn to massage your baby, you could do it from day one. Day
Okay.
one, literally day one from birth, and you learn to massage and use the techniques that are specific for littles. Not only does it really enhance your bond with your little one, but because you're massaging, first of all, distractions are gone. Because that's one thing I hear often with
Mm,
parents is, I'm present with my child. Like, I am here and I'm really trying to spend time with him or her, but my mind is somewhere else. I can't shut
yeah.
it off, especially when we're really stressed or overworked. We have a lot of things going on.
Yeah.
A lot of parents have a hard time connecting. And so when you're in the world of infant massage, it literally is like you're in another world and you get so lost because not you're literally very intentional in interacting and really learning your child's cues, especially if they're nonverbal, and you start to learn their language. And there is a release of oxytocin that feels so incredible. Mine is 10 and I still massage him and he's like, "Mommy, can I get another massage?" And he loves it. And then they come and do it to you too.
That's
So not
adorable.
only is it a connection, something that you can incorporate, even if you're doing it for 5 minutes, the whole massage is usually like 15, 20 minutes or so. But even if
Yeah.
you're spending that time and you build it in your routine, it is such a solid connection at that time. Not only that, but it helps with their sleep. It helps with pain, with
Yeah.
teething, with constipation. And
Yeah.
I've found that, finding something, what if even if it's not that, something where you feel lost with your little one,
Oh,
that
that's so
feels good
good.
for both of you, where you can genuinely disconnect. Because I don't know how many times we cannot disconnect from the mind chatter. And
Mm.
if we could take our children into meditation, wow, and teach them how to listen, that not
Yeah.
necessarily simple to do, finding an activity where you both enjoy it, where it's
Mhm.
very evident that you can be lost in it, so that you have that connection. And I think that, you're connecting all day long. I think part of it too is remembering that you are perfect as you are. There's nothing wrong with you. You are a great parent. When we experience guilt, it's typically because we are great at what we're doing, because someone that would be intentionally malicious wouldn't experience guilt. And
Mm.
so when we
Yeah.
say, "Oh, I'm a bad mom," or "I'm not good enough, I didn't spend enough time with my child,"
Yeah.
the fact that you're even feeling that emotion tells you where your intent is. So there's just so much that we're doing that we don't even notice. So I think also to be kind to yourself and give yourself a little bit of grace, because you are doing so much and
Yeah.
we're never going to be perfect by any means.
Yeah.
More about having this human experience in with our children, and when things don't go as we planned, there's always room for repair. So you come back
Yeah.
and repair whatever happened. It doesn't matter if they're little or 3 or 5. It's the repair process that a child's always going to remember, not
Mm.
so much the argument or the downfall that a parent and a
Yeah.
child had. And so those are, I think I gave a couple in there.
Yeah, you did. They were all great.
When you are at home and juggling your littles, um, just to really just take a step back too and connect to your heart and take a moment to realize your worthiness and how great you are. And not only are you doing that, but when you do that and you connect to your heart, you also open up the gates to be able to energetically connect to your little ones, even if they're in the room next door, which is something
Yeah.
else really beautiful.
Yeah, that is so good. I feel like the infant massage is not something that I've heard a lot about. So I love that you brought that up because I think that's something I personally would love to explore more and could be fun for even my twins to do with one another, or, we can all be engaged. I don't really trust them to do it with the baby quite yet, but, to do something that's kind of engaging for the family. And like you said, to let our minds be present is so difficult. So I love that idea, and maybe asking my husband to give me a massage so the girls can see how.
I love it.
Yeah.
You can actually practice on dolls. So what we do a lot of times with when they're
Oh, that's
siblings.
good.
So let's say
Yeah.
you're massaging your little one and your other children can practice on a doll and learn the
Yeah.
technique with you, and they feel engaged. It feels fun. It's an activity that is fun to do. It
Yeah.
doesn't feel like a chore, because that's the
Yeah.
other thing I often hear, prescribed times like, oh, spend
Mm,
15 minutes a day with your child. But you know what?
yeah.
Again, if it feels forced, if it feels ingenuine, it's not going to work. It's got to feel in alignment with you.
Yeah.
Um, and so I noticed that that's one that I've yet to meet a parent that's not in love with the way it feels to have that interaction with their little ones. And then you
Yeah.
can keep doing it for as
Yeah.
long as your children will allow you to just modify it. So
Yeah.
it's been fun to watch families connect that way when it can
Definitely.
be tough to connect in others.
Yeah, definitely. That is so good because I think that connection piece is so important and yet can feel so hard with littles that can't necessarily communicate. So I will definitely be trying that on all three of my girls because I know that that's something that I haven't can't, come across often, if at all, in what I've read. So that makes me super excited, and I'm glad it's something that's so tangible and, easy to do. It's not like I need to take a 10-hour course on how to give an infant massage. So I love that. What about balancing work and life, either from personal experience or something that you tell your clients and parents? What advice do you have for juggling all the things that we do as moms and entrepreneurs?
One, I would say we have a tendency to give all our energy to our littles, and we do forget about ourselves. And I know this is a story we hear all the time, but it,
Mm-hmm.
it really is true that when you don't take a moment, even if it's a moment to connect with yourself throughout the day and regulate, that it is going
Mm-hmm.
to be a lot more difficult to juggle. So kind of like what we were talking about earlier, when we're out of alignment and where we're running on, on that fight or flight, where we're what we call in beta waves, where it's all doing, doing, doing,
Mm-hmm.
everything takes so much longer. So the
Yeah,
task that typically, it'll take you 3 hours to do, when you're in alignment in a state of flow, that'll take you 30 minutes, an hour.
yeah,
It
that's
literally
so good.
feels like magic. And so if we can be a little bit more intentional in paying attention to where we're at as parents, like where are we at? What is it that we're feeling and perceiving? Because that's also going to make a difference as to how much time you're spending in the not so fun parts of parenting. Because
Yeah.
let's say you woke up, you're really overwhelmed, you're stressed, whatever's going on, and your little one is banging on the table with a toy.
Mm-hmm.
That child's probably just learning oh, this is cool. I get to make music. But if
Yeah,
you're out of alignment, that's probably going to set you off a little bit more. And you're going to have a harder time even managing. And then it's going to snowball into a control issue, an interaction
definitely.
is not as fun.
Yeah.
or just in that annoyance gets bigger and bigger.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I always recommend to check in with yourself multiple times throughout the day, even if it means setting like a little alarm in your on your phone where you're just like, I'm just going to check in with myself. Where am I?
That's a good idea.
How am I
Yeah.
feeling? Okay, cool. Do I need to take a moment and take some fresh air? Do I need to go get up and get a glass of water? Because
Yeah.
again, you're getting the nudges of the things you need, but we often ignore them. And
Yeah.
so check in, that alone, constantly finding ways to stay in balance within yourself is going to make your work parenting experience much easier because things are going to flow better. Technology happens to work when you're in alignment.
Yeah.
You just have better interactions. Things are better. For me personally, I have a practice in the morning. Every time I wake up, I meditate every single morning, whether it's 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 20. I meditate and I take a moment to set the intention to start my day in balance and alignment. And when
Yeah.
I don't, oh my goodness, everything is completely different. I can totally tell like things don't work out,
Yeah.
takes me longer to get through things. The
Yeah.
people around me, are unhappy. My
Yeah.
child all of a sudden has meltdowns and more difficulty.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I know what I didn't do. I didn't take care of my own alignment. And so
Yeah.
I think that's one that's incredibly crucial in having a good, I think instead of saying work-life balance, like a better integration of the two,
Yeah.
especially 'cause usually at that age, not always, but oftentimes your kids are home.
Yeah.
And then if you're an entrepreneur, oftentimes you're working from home. And
Yeah.
so you've got all of them together at the same time. So that
Yeah.
leads me into integration. How often can you integrate the two together so you're not looking at it as one or the other? It's not like and or. It's
Yep.
more and versus a this or that.
Yeah. Seriously.
So how can we integrate the two worlds together? An example for me, because I do a lot of starting to do a lot of the social media and all these things that we have to do to keep up with entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm,
Yep.
is there any way that I can integrate my little one in this process? And
Yep.
obviously, that's going to depend on your level of comfort or where you're at. But for example, mine actually really wants to get out there and wants to teach other kids and wants to teach parents. So I'm like, let's make you part of this process. Or
Yeah. I
maybe
love
they
that.
can help you with something. Maybe they can help you set up the lights. And now, when they're really little, obviously, like babies, same thing. Like, how can you still integrate them into your work in the sense of, okay, I am about to jump on a podcast
Yep.
or record a podcast, but the joy that that little one brings you. So can you, right before you go on, spend 2, 3 minutes just holding them and loving up on them because that's going to get you into a state of alignment and
Yeah.
everything's going to flow a little bit better. So anytime that you can really integrate the two somehow, and you can get really creative with integration
Yeah.
versus having the mindset of it has to be one or the other, because the minute you start to see it as one or the other is when things get off balance, because ideally you want everything to be fun and joyful and flow. I know it doesn't always, but when we set the intent for it too, then the whole process into all together integrated becomes easy because one is very connected to the other. If you're having a
Yeah.
tough time running your business and really stressed in that process, then your parenting is going to suffer. When you're having a tough time in the parenting process, then your business is going to suffer. So
Yeah.
everything is interconnected. And if you can remember that all of it flows together and you want to find joy and inspiration in everything you do and connect it all, everything will start to flow better and it will feel a lot easier.
Yeah, definitely. I think that's so good and so important because it is it is so easy to get overwhelmed and to try to achieve this balance. I know like there is different takes, right? Like is work-life balance possible or is it just work-life integration? That's what I ask a lot of my moms when we're having these conversations is like do you believe work-life balance is possible for you? Because some people believe, yes, I feel really balanced, and some say, no, not in the season, right? So if the answer is no, how do we integrate both so we feel aligned and we feel good about what we're doing and where we're putting our energy? Because even if it's not a balance, that maybe isn't what we're striving for in this season, and that's okay. But we need to know what we want to achieve to find that alignment and to find that peace that comes with our time being utilized in a way that feels fruitful to us, and not where we're in that rut of, where is my time going? I feel guilt, I feel shame for not doing enough, for not spending enough time with my kids, for whatever it may be, to get out of that and get into a space of, I'm doing the best I can for the season that I'm in. So I
Right.
love that you shared that, because I think it's so important.
And you just spark something in me, is that when you say the guilt and the balance to that, sometimes when you feel the inspiration, desire to actually spend time away, that's okay. Follow,
Yes.
because when you do,
Yes.
now you can come back and be your wholesome, wonderful, more aligned self. And there's so much guilt in even taking time for yourself. Like,
Oh my
you know
gosh,
what?
yes.
I actually like working out of the house today, and I'm going to have a babysitter, and I'm going to just,
Yep.
work in the office for 8 hours. If that's what feels good inside you, listen to that.
Yes, that is
That is
so important.
okay to
Oh
do.
my
And you're
gosh.
not going to, you're doing the complete opposite for your kids, because we always think, oh my goodness, they're going to be angry or not love us because we left them. But
Yeah.
you're also teaching them so much and modeling what it is like to know that you can look within yourself to find everything you need,
Yeah.
and that they have their own inner being and connection, and that they're learning how to tune in and tap into that as well, so
Yeah.
that you're not always let's say the savior, or always rushing to do those things.
Yeah.
That it's okay to do that, that you got to do what feels good to you too, and it's okay. And I know it's easier to hear it than it is to actually do it, because there's so much
Yeah.
guilt, even in taking a vacation with your partner. It's like, I
Yeah.
can't leave my kids alone. I'm like, but can you imagine
Yeah.
when you come back, how
Oh my
much more
gosh.
alive and well you're going to be, and how
Yeah.
much you're going to be able to give.
Yeah, I think what you just said is so important, because it is true. Like, I know last week is a perfect example. I have had stuff on my calendar every day since I mean, I don't know. I even with maternity leave thrown in the mix, there's very few days I don't have things on my calendar. Something that I need to do for somebody else in a work capacity, or my husband and I work together somewhat. He runs like our property management and rentals, but I do a lot of design, or I have to do stuff for floor plans, tenants. So there's always something, right, that comes up where, even if it's not leaving the house, it can be virtual. I'm still doing some work in some capacity, or I'm doing something, whether it's my kids or the house, the animals, all of it. So last week I had nothing on my calendar, which truly happens so rarely. I was blown away. I was like, I must have forgot to put something. I'm like, my day is totally open. This is amazing. And I said to myself, okay, I could have a catch up day and spend the full day in the office and be annoyed and not get as much done as I want and be resentful that I'm there. Or I can go do all the things I've been putting off for myself that I really wanted to do. I needed to get my nails and toes done. I wanted to get a shoulder massage. I wanted to pick up my bottles of wine for my wine club that I was like 3 months behind on. I'm like, okay, I am going to go and I'm not going to do anything for work, even though I have a list that is so long. And I'm going to go do all the things that I want to do. I went to Costco. I got, you know what I mean? I did all those things, and I felt some guilt and shame at first when I was thinking about it. And then I was like, you know what? No, I deserve this time too. And why would I feel guilty? Like, if I was sitting in the office, I was going to be resentful that I was there. It wasn't going to be as productive. But I will tell you, when I got home from that day, I felt so much more patient. I felt so much more fulfilled. And I was a better mom for I think the last week I was a better mom because I took that time. And I was better at work when the next day I was so much more productive because I took that time, and it was almost like a reset of, okay, what do I need right now to recharge? And that was it. And I think it is so easy to tie guilt to that and say, oh, I shouldn't take that time for myself. Well, I don't know who needs to hear this, but somebody listening needs to take the day or take the hour, whatever that time block is, to recharge and do something for yourself without the guilt or shame. Because if you do it and you feel guilt, it is not as fulfilling. I can say that firsthand. There's times where I'll go and do the thing, but I feel guilty the whole time, and I come back and it was like I would have been just as good not going because I didn't enjoy that break that I was giving myself.
You bring up such a good point when you say that, because I've definitely been there too, where I'm like, I'm just going to sit down and enjoy this movie. And
Yeah.
in my head, I'm like, but I really should be doing this and this and this. And then I don't enjoy it.
Yeah.
So you did two things that I love. You followed your passion, which is, ooh, it feels exciting to get my nails done and to get a massage. And you didn't doubt it. You didn't question it. You were like,
Yeah.
okay. But then you also, when you felt the guilt, sounds like you shifted it. It's like,
Yeah.
no, you actually had a little conversation with yourself.
Oh yeah.
I promise you that when you start to feel it, like right when it's coming up, that's the time. And when you can shift it right then and there, you actually can let go of it really quickly. And I always think of emotions as messengers. They're
Mm-hmm.
not good or bad. They're all wonderful, and they're here to tell us something. And so when we
Yeah.
feel an emotion that's uncomfortable, I always imagine someone at the door knocking, going, okay, I have a message for you. And we're like,
Yeah.
no, I don't want to hear it. And then we keep
Yeah.
pushing it away, but it's going to keep knocking at the door. It's going to start throwing rocks at your windows and break down the door until you hear it.
Yeah.
Most of us are taught not to hear it. That's how we grew up. It's like, oh no, we can't, nope, gotta push them away. And if they're too great, then you're too much, or you're
Yeah.
not modest enough if you're feeling too good, right? And so
Yeah. Oh my gosh.
then you can actually feel the feeling, okay, I'm feeling guilty about getting my nails done.
Yeah.
Let's ask it, okay, why are you here? What's going on? And,
Yeah.
and you're actually going to hear the message like, well, if I get my nails done, then I'm a bad parent. And you can actually bring that to your awareness. And
Yeah.
then you can actually, it doesn't even sound rational. It's like,
Exactly. Once you say it, yeah. Yup. Exactly.
it's
Yup.
gone like that. So to be able to take guilt being one of the ones I think we experience the most and listen to it, see what message it has to bring you, have
Yeah.
a little discussion with it, allow it in a way that's intentional, as opposed to sitting with it, because otherwise we'll sit with it forever and it'll just keep coming up and up and up.
Yeah.
And then shift that. Because one of the things I noticed, since, I've worked with up until young adults, I still see some teenagers. And one thing I noticed that's a theme with all of them is that they don't value rest. It is seen as rest. You are lazy if you rest.
Wow.
You are not productive enough. You are not successful. And when I look
Wow.
at just my career as a whole, that includes so many of us, that the moment we try to do something that we're inspired to do, like get our nails done or something like that, it's almost like it's a luxury as opposed
Yeah.
to a part of our everyday. Where can I find joy and fun in that? Because
Yeah.
that to me is so much more valuable than all the work you can put in, because then you're doing it from a place of alignment, and you're tapping into your unlimited potential. And now you can be more creative. Now you have more flow. Now you're a better person in the world, not just to your
Yeah.
kids, but to your husband, to your coworkers, because
Yeah.
you're tapping into an energy source that isn't available to you when you shut down those emotions and
Yeah.
you
Wow.
you don't take care of yourself.
Oh my gosh, that is so good. And I think what you just said about rest is so, one, sad to hear, but two, it's like it hits so close to home, right? Like, of course kids are thinking that because that's what we think so much of the time. Maybe we don't say it, but I think that's what we push out when we promote work, work, work. And maybe that's something that I've been conscious of, because I think seeing my parents too, and in the life of providing money over time, that was something that I felt like was so prevalent. Like, I know my parents wanted to give me the best life, but to them, they thought that was to provide financially, when really the thing I wanted the most was their time. And I think I'm aware of that with my kids, but I don't promote rest. I look at my lifestyle and I think I want to be intentional about my time with them. But what does it say when I won't give myself a break because I want to be around my kids so bad? What message am I sending? So that's just so powerful to hear, and to hear that kids are picking up on that and struggling with that. Like, that's why it's so important for us to model what we want our kids to live out, because it's so easy to say, you do this, but I'm going to do that. But they watch us so closely. So to hear how it comes through and what they pick up on just makes me even, more compelled to change that narrative and to really start implementing rest in a way that they see it as a healthy thing and an okay thing. So,
That's
wow,
beautiful.
yeah,
Even babies, they'll pick up
yeah,
on energy.
yeah, 100%. Oh my gosh, I know. My kids, when I'm feeling off, they can pick up on it. Even if I don't say or act differently, it's just the energy that we give. 100%. I can see them pick up on that. But yeah, this conversation has been so amazing, Dr. Karen. I wish we could talk for hours. I would love to keep talking, but for anybody who wants to stay in touch with you and wants to learn more about what you're doing and learn more about what you put out in the world, where can they find you? What do you have to offer? Just tell our listeners, a little bit more.
Yes. So my company is Lumitot, Lumitot, comes from the word illumination and tot. So keeping littles illuminated. So
Hmm.
I'm all over socials is Lumitot, and website, the same thing, just www.lumitot.com. And what I've created is a lot of really comprehensive programs. I have a lot of different services, but the main ones that I offer are comprehensive programs that really walk you through pregnancy in the first 5 years. Think of it as your master's in parenting. I don't know how
I
else to
love
put
it.
it. A manual
Yeah.
that kids don't come with, but it's more of that teaching that lifestyle that makes sense for you and that literally walks you through those years. As I don't ever claim that, oh, I can make you the perfect parent in 10 weeks. That does not exist in my books. It's an ongoing journey and a process. And so I have programs that really help to transform you and your belief systems around parenting, and then integrate them and implement them in a way that intentionally helps you to raise your littles, and also incorporates functional medicine and Eastern medicine, so that not only are we working with those thoughts in the brain, but we're also providing an environment that really supports brain functioning. So think of like nutrition and toxins in the environment, or things that we don't think about that
Yeah.
are really essential in allowing for the body to do what it knows to do in the brain
Yeah.
when we set up the environment to do that. So
Dang.
that's what I offer. And I
That's
also
amazing.
have like a little guide that goes through the dimensions of health that I think are critical. And if anybody's interested, it's a gift, and it actually will give you more practical tips that you can implement on those 8 different dimensions of health, so that you can start implementing that lifestyle.
That is amazing. Thank you so much. I will link, that will be linked in our show notes below. So if anybody listening wants to connect or get that guide, we'll put it all down below. But thank you so much, Dr. Karen. This has been so great. I loved our conversation, and I'm so grateful that you're part of the Mom Boss Central community.
Thank you so much. It was such an honor and a pleasure to be a part of your show. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on this episode of Mom Boss Central. I hope you found inspiration, encouragement, and maybe even a few new strategies to rock your mom boss journey. Remember, you're not alone. We're all in this together. And don't forget to share the love with your fellow mom bosses. Make sure to join the community at mombosscentral.com. It's completely free and a space to connect with like-minded women. All you have to do is sign up and start connecting. Until next time, keep pursuing your passions and living authentically. We're so happy to have you as part of the Mom Boss Central community.